This is True Power of Mind, and this is Special Report. I have retired Navy SEAL Senior Chief Don Shipley on the line today. We're going to be talking, a little bit of this, but a lot of that, as always. So, Chief, you there on the line? And also, I want to give out Senior Chief's YouTube page. It's Buds, Buds131. And you can find his YouTube channel. A lot of great videos exposing these basically criminals. They're thieves. They steal valor that we should, as American citizens, show our men and women in uniform and children. Yes, when the last time Chief was on, correct me about that. Let's not forget the children that have served in our forces. All right. So without further ado, Senior Chief, you there?
Yeah, I am. Well, that children thing I had brought up because my wife took care of hospice patients, and one of them told me, he was an old Navy guy. He said he joined the Navy when he was 14.
Wow.
Lied about his age, served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And I thought, oh God, you've got to be the oldest guy to ever serve in modern history. Civil War had little drummer boys and things like that. The ships always had cabin boys on them, the children. But I contacted a website for underage military veterans, and I said, this guy was 14 when he joined. He's got to be the youngest. He said, no, it was a sailor. His first name was Calvin. He did a movie about him, but he was 12 years old and served in World War II. So, that's the children aspect of it. It doesn't happen anymore. They're much too slick for that now with computers and finding out about you. The French Foreign Legion, maybe.
Maybe the old Frenchie. You
guys will take anybody.
I saw. Actually, I wish I do have it. I saw an article on Drudge Report today. It was basically China and Russia basically warning America about our sanctions. Okay. Basically the trade war that's kind of heating up right now. And I wanted to do that because, as we are getting, a lot more tension, even more so than we did during the Cold War years. Do you have any ideal for, Mom, Pop, Uncle Joe, Aunt Sally, a basic bug out bag that doesn't require an extreme crap ton of money to put together?
Well, how'd that fall under sanctions?
Well,
just talking about China and Russia.
Yeah, well, because if for whatever reason the trade war turns into a hot war, I always tell my listeners who live in the cities and the suburb areas, you have to evacuate those areas. You have to get out to the country. You're gonna from point A to point B. You might not need a bunch of stuff, but you'll need some basic things like bandages or maybe some antibiotics, ointments and stuff of that nature, just to ensure that you can get to a safe location. Because we know this time around, if we do have some sort of a real military exchange with a true first world country, then we're going to get hit ourselves. We're talking about possible EMP attacks, taking down the electrical grid, obviously nuclear attacks, via either missiles or submarines or even aircraft or even a drone at this particular time. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the world. I mean, I really didn't go into the sanctions bit because, as the trade war progresses, it's going to be obvious the effects of our sanctions against various nations that are allied with China and or Russia. Like Syria, for instance.
Well, we can talk about both of those, but wars often start and have throughout history when one country has something the other one wants, or they run out of resources.
Yes.
And when you start building billions and billions of people in a country like China, and they start running out of shit, they're going to come looking for whoever has it. And that's just the way it is. And that's some of your bug out bag. It's a thing, and I'm not a survivalist or anything, but I believe in a thing they call 3 days to anarchy. You ever heard of that?
No, sir.
When you take someone's food away from them for 3 days, they're going to come looking for some. If you're the unlucky guy that has what they want, it's the same thing going on in Katrina and these hurricanes, these natural disasters. Somebody doesn't eat for 3 days, they're going to come looking for something. So I don't know that people have to bug. When you start talking about bugging out and going into an unfamiliar area, like you're going to run for the hills or something like that, you're talking a Red Dawn scenario. If you ever saw that,
yes,
lazy.
Exactly.
And that's not an easy thing to do. You're not familiar with the environment. You need a whole lot more skills. You got to loot a gun store and a hardware store to get your bows and arrows and ammunition and stuff. But you can be prepared at home. The big thing of getting out of those hurricane zones, getting out of the path of that thing. But these other disasters, oftentimes, I'm not telling anybody to stay with a hurricane because I'm not dumb enough to get lifted off the roof of my house by a Coast Guard hero. Man, that'd be all over the news that Don Shipley got. But oftentimes in your backyard, you're better, and you just need these supplies of food, water, money, batteries, just simple stuff. And you can easily get lists of that offline. So many days of food. These things are coming in these ready-to-eat containers. It's shelf life of 30 or 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
Water and just some of the things that people genuinely learn. But when you're talking that a bug-out bag to really run from something like that threat and invasion, that whole Red Dawn thing, is certainly money. They're making these gold things now. Gold, so the whole everything goes, gold, silver, stuff like that is where people are going to have to use their currency, going back to old school stuff. But they even make these little sheets of gold, perforated sheets, where you can knock off a small square of it, like a Hershey bar,
and give it away.
That to you just take off a little piece of it. It's worth so much, and whoever else. But I'm not telling anybody to start buying gold, but people work with that stuff.
Yes.
Gold, you get your cash, and you had mentioned a compass, which is always a good thing, but you got to know how to use that. You got to know where you're going and areas of it, maps. It's not an easy thing to do. Taking off.
Well, what about this idea, Chief? Like, say that you utilize Google Earth, and let's just say that you're in some sort of metropolitan area, all right? And we all know the high tension wires and railroad tracks are basically unofficial pathways out of town. So now, while we still have internet and all these resources, you know where you live at. You go to Google Earth, you print out a few actual maps, so you can get familiarized with landmarks, all right, that you can spot from the sky. So hopefully you spot them from the ground. Kind of get a sense of bearing or what direction you want to go. Because my whole thing is basically trying to get people in survival mode within the first 9 days of this event or whatnot. Because if you're not prepared, when something happens, like you said, using the hurricane, if you sit there and messed around all the way up until the hurricane's actually on the shore, at that point in time, it's over. You can't, you really can't, you have no maneuvering ability. You have to either hunker down, pray that your house don't come off its foundation, and that's about it, versus being on the interstate 2 days while the hurricane was still out at sea, and you can get farther inland. So even when the hurricane comes in, it will kind of lose power as it's going. Because I just think a lot of people are physically unfit. We smoke, we drink, overeat. So therefore, putting on a bag with tons of ammunition, a million guns, a few axes, few swords, that's unpractical for most people. I suggest always, keeping weight as an ideal, no more than 30 pounds. Everything you need in a 30-pound package. Instead of carrying bottles of water, you get life straws. They're only like $19, I think, can get you like 100 of them. And you hit up whatever source of water along the way. You kind of live off the land as you go to a certain degree, because, I think once, if you take vehicles out of the equation, a lot of us, and what I mean by us, American citizens, especially those of us over the age of 40, are not going to meet the physical requirement of just like straight up a Red Dawn situation without adequately being prepared. And preparedness also means that you have to reach out to people in your area, in the country, and start developing relationships with folks. You know, not make no secret society or nothing like that, but just developing relationships so that you all have an understanding. If something happens, this is a rallying point. You know, you get to these coordinates, we'll band together here, and this is where we'll operate, and then we'll link up with other patriots and whoever's left, and try to come up with a strategy for our survival.
Well, there's a lot of, and I'm sure there's one in every part of the country, bigger cities. And I'm not a survivalist guy, and those survivalist guys can go into nutville really quickly. Some of those organizations, but there's a lot of them that they do exactly what you say. They bond together.
Yes.
They have regular meetings. They plan new ideas. They stockpile some stuff, and you are going to a central location, a secure area where they have food, they have water. You join this thing. They train. They do all kinds of stuff, and those are that's a pretty good idea. And I mean by some of these guys take this shit to extremes.
Yes.
And you don't want to be hanging out with somebody, sharpening his knife every 5 minutes. Who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, your bug out bag. I use beach survival a lot. I've done a lot of it, and it's called the rule of threes. You can stay alive underwater, most people, for 3 minutes. You can survive without water for 3 days, and you can go without food for 3 weeks. 3, 3, 3. So when you start preparing yourself for something like that, and really, shelter is absolutely right up in there. You've got to have something to get under.
Yes.
You got 3 days without that water, but when you talk about a little bug out bag, you need some kind of, you're sleeping in the car, which doesn't always work in the heat or the cold, but some kind of shelter to get in, a tent, your sleeping bag and stuff, and that water, and then thirdly, that food. You can go for a while without food. I think the record, I used to teach it was either 50 or 60 some days.
60 days, 2 months.
An IRA terrorist in a British prison went on a hunger strike, and it took him over 60 days to die.
Wow.
So, you can really go a long way without that food. It's not really a priority in the big picture, but certainly some of those, you have to practice these skills. And we found out, now I'm talking about spec war, SEAL teams and the military in general with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. This wasn't the conflicts of past things. There wasn't a whole lot of guys getting captured or having to evade behind enemy lines that were going over there. You think of Marcus Luttrell and the lone survivor. They found out that was a rare occurrence. That normally in a situation like that where you're evading capture, you are around a population of some kind. And whether that population is hostile to you or not, they have vehicles, they have weapons, they have food, they have water. And a lot of this has turned survival, where we would teach survival in SEAL team up until really recently, was worst case scenario. It was your plane crashing in the Andes. You're having to spear fish, catch monkeys, start fire with flints. I mean, it was really worst case, and that doesn't happen. Most people can expect to get out of some stuff in about 3 days if they keep their wits about them. But it turned into urban survival, and they were actually putting on courses all over the country, and they would get the guys, spec ward dudes, things like that, and these guys would find themselves with a bag over their head, handcuffed in the back of a vehicle. And when they get out of that stuff and open the car, this is 2 o'clock in the morning, they'd be in one of the worst sections of Philadelphia, a city they'd never even been to. And they had to spend a week surviving there with just the clothes on their back. They had to find a water source, food sources, eating out of garbage cans. They had to get bus routes, vehicle routes. It was called urban survival. You've got to tough this out and learn to blend in on the streets. And, that was always pretty doggone interesting. See
That
how
is.
you do with something like that. So,
is there like a website? Is there a website or a booklet or, a PDF booklet of that program that people can download for reading?
I don't know. I'm sure you can get on Urban Survival. There are people that teach all this stuff. There are some really fantastic courses. When you want to talk about map and compasses, you can go to those primitive survival skills, making your own slingshots and bows. I know a SEAL that does it down south. Teaches some very primitive survival skills. They do them in the desert, the jungle, the Everglades. Really things that people can really, need to know or know. It's nice knowing how to start a fire with flint and steel. It's also nice having a thick lighter.
That's funny you said, because my wife goes, when she was putting her little bag together, she goes, I was like, why are you putting all those lighters in there? Like 4 packages of the, to ensure that she won't go out, because, eventually you will go out of big lighters, especially if we have like an EMP situation, but the steel and the striking it, even with your knife, the little steel rod, the forever match is, you can get it off a Bud Case catalog for like $1.20 something, and you'll have fire for years, potentially. So, I really want to get my hands on that herbal survival guide because, one thing you said here during our conversation that made me think, not only would a person who never dealt with the country have to, rapidly get over the culture shock of it all, but, there's animals out here, there's things out here, you can't just eat any berry you may see out there in the woods or any plant. And if a person could possibly survive in an urban situation, the only reason why I'm kind of against the urban situation is because, like, when things tune out, where are you going to grow your vegetables at? There'd be so many mobs or groups of people who may not have your best interests at heart, just roaming about, pillaging and plundering. It's like these high density population areas. It just seems like it'll just be so overwhelming, because it'll basically be anarchy once the infrastructure of our first responders and our military has been severed, and they're going to be focusing on other things. And I think the people are kind of going to be left to their own devices.
When you look at a show like The Walking Dead, that's actually a really good show, what you're talking about. And I know they have experts on that cast in this type of urban survival thing to teach them that. If you really watch that show, they're finding water. They fill up their canteens out of toilet tanks.
Oh, yeah.
They go in there and they filter these houses looking for canned goods and all that stuff. And they're always lifting the back off a toilet to get, because there is no water anymore, to get some water out of that. And just strange stuff of how they're foraging. There's been a lot of thought put into that show about what it would be like. You can just imagine that. These groups that bond together, and then there's always other groups out there that are going to come after you, man.
Yeah.
The strong survive, man. People inherit the earth, and you can look at that both ways. So
that is so true. Hey, don't get me wrong. I wish the world could be kumbaya. Truly, I really, really do wish. But then my logical and reasoning side kicks in, and it's like, of course it can't be. There's this too many evil, for lack of better words, pricks out there that have no sense of honor, no sense of respect. It's all about them. They would step on their own mom's neck if it was to help them reach their goal. And with those type of, psycho, sociopath, whack jobs out there, you just have to be aware, especially when we don't have 911 anymore. You can't call, for instance, whenever you get into a real altercation, you always can basically call the police and they will come in. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say about the police force, but when you need help, who do you call? In reality, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be law enforcement. But when you have that no longer as any type of option, how are you going to deal with this guy or this group of guys trying to beat down your door to get to your wife, to get to your children, to get to your food, to get to your water, or even just yourself? So that's why, I'm an avid believer in the Second Amendment, avid believer in the First Amendment, and all the other Constitution, precepts of the Constitution, because let's face it, if we have laws and they're applied across the board the same way, there is no issue at all. And this kind of goes back to the situation where our whole country's at. We're torn so many different ways nowadays, unfortunately. And it's like, if you don't see the writing on the walls, we have the prospect potentially of a civil war, a prospect of a global war. So these things, and I don't even want to get into the and many, this is no state. I've talked about a little bit about the war going on in the various intelligent communities around the world. So there's some things coming down the pike, guys. You mentioned the economy. Unfortunately, Chief, we are operating on a fiat currency. It isn't backed by gold. It's backed by the Federal Reserve and what their directors are saying. This is so much interest, and this is how much people have to pay on loans and prime rates and this and that. But that can be subverted and used as a weapon just as much as an atomic bomb. And I think it would actually have far more reaching consequences if the powers that be, to put it, mildly, basically decides to, well, put it this way, we're heating up a trade war with China. We all know that China has a lot of debt that they bought off the United States. What happens, sir, if China decides, okay, let's call in the debt. Let's make America pay us this money right now. We don't have that much liquidity in this country to be able to come up with the cash to give these people. And that itself would be a premise for, or justification to go to war, so that they can seize, like you said, the resources. Many of you guys don't know that China's already sucking out all the water in the Great Lakes. They're already basically turned Iowa, the whole state, into their personal pig farm. And then they're doing other endeavors in other parts of the country. So we have to understand that the notion of colonization is still very much real. Of course, it's not in our face. You don't see Chinese troops on our soil, but you definitely see the influence, even in Hollywood nowadays, of the Chinese agenda. And I'm not saying Chinese are bad or nothing like that. I'm not. I'm just saying that you have to be aware where is your rung on this ladder? Is it up top or is it at bottom? And I'm saying we're fastly going down the old proverbial crapper, for a whole host of reasons.
Oh, I'll put your mind at ease about all that, dude. Look, we're all going to be killed by an asteroid, and that's that. You don't have to worry about any of this anarchy or China or anything. An asteroid's going to hit us sooner or later. We'll all be dead. We don't have to worry about it. Now, I know where you're going with the China thing. I'm not a political guy.
I got you.
I will tell you that, and I'm not defending Trump. There's some stuff that guy does. However, I think there was a lot of sore losers when he got elected, and they are making life extremely difficult on that guy at every turn. I don't know anybody that could put up with the stuff that he's putting up and get in a full day's work. And if Trump has started a trade war, as savvy as a business guy as he is, the amount of pressure that's being put on him, I honestly want to believe that he did that for a reason, that he knows what he is doing. And I wish they'd all get off his back about some of Russia and this other insanity that's going on, and try to let that guy just do his job and be the judge at the end of it. You said 4 years, give it to him and let the guy go, and let's see. But man, and you got to wonder, why he would start that. Everybody's on this trade war, and we're going to be punished and
yes.
the other countries and everything else. But maybe he knows something he ain't telling us all.
Oh, sure.
This is going to work out.
I'm sure.
There is this unfair thing, and he ought to try to straighten it out. But nobody's giving him a chance to breathe on anything. They're all over this Russia thing.
Well, and the funny thing about that, though, is that the majority of people who are demonizing Trump and saying that he's so evil, so bad, They have no clue to what type of president Michael Pence will be. They do not understand that, whereas Trump, you could reasonably view him as a moderate Christian or spiritual person, whereas Pence is an evangelical, John Birch Society. So there's a total different diaspora that he would come with versus Trump. Now, the thing with Trump,
you are way more into this than I am. I sit on this farm in Maryland here, and I hunt geese. But I do know that I think they've given him a bad shake, and you got to let the guy do his job and leave him alone, and let's see what he's got. And then that's the only way we're going to know. But the tremendous pressure they're putting on him, and it's just hard to imagine the guy can get a decent day's work in and try to do what he said he's going to do. I'm not justifying anything. I would like to see.
Well, I'll say, look, I have been a harsh critic, but I will say it like this as well. The bottom line is, and I'm only talking to my American fellow citizens, and if you're not American, because I know this goes all over the world, so it won't really affect you. This is where honor and respect comes in as a citizen. Whether you like him as a person, whether you give him a Yelp 5-star or 1-star review, that's totally irrelevant. We have to take our emotions away and just use our logic and common sense. As Americans, is it constructive for us to totally not want to see him succeed? Or is it constructive for us to want to not see him succeed? And logically, as long as he's doing, it's going to help the country. Like, for instance, the wall. Oh my God, it's like a taboo subject. But really, rationally speaking, and you can take this any way you want, it's only common sense to secure your borders. In fact, that's one of the things the federal government is tasked to do. It's not really tasked to do other things that it kind of overreaches and does, but to ensure that our borders are safe. Absolutely. That's one of the things we should be concerned with. I'm not trying to keep no one out of the country per se, and certainly not people who are coming from situations where, unfortunately, if you look into some of our blackout programs, maybe we had a help in that country being messed up to begin with. But you got to understand, that's on a totally different level. That's the whole chess game with supremacy on nations on a national level. Unfortunately, we don't, like Chief and I agreed on, we don't live in a kumbaya world. So we have to get that fantasy out of our minds to begin with, meaning that there will be nations, there will be people, there will be groups, and there will be lone wolves that have nothing but hatred and ill will towards America and the ideal of true liberty and freedom for all. There's always going to be those elements out there. So how do we combat that? Well, we combat that by having a well-funded and very strong, intelligent agencies, not just one, but several, so that we can get the full picture on the land. But see, everyone's always interject so much nonsense into a very simple, it's really a very simple issue. Do we want to have secure borders, north, south, east, and west? Or, do we just want to, hey, come in, kill whoever, go back to your homeland, do whatever? Nobody wants to live like that. That's why we basically, that's why we invest in ADT or whatever security system you may have in your home. Security is a reality. Now, we can talk about why are people leaving their homelands to begin with. That's a whole nother concept, whole nother discussion. And being a student of history and understanding historical precedents, yes, you cannot say that our hands are totally clean of basically interfering with smaller countries and their affairs. That is what it is. All right, it is. I'm not going to deny it. But on the flip side, though, we all have families, or most of us have families. Most of us have husbands or wives. Most of us have little ones. All right, I'm just talking to you guys now. All you single people, this is not so much for you, but you got to understand, those of us with children, we cannot defend them just by ourselves. It will take a collective, not to raise them, but to collectively defend them. All right. There's a lot of people out there that wants to harm Americans, and they won't care if you're black, they won't care if you're white, they won't care if you're a Muslim, they won't care if you're Christian, they won't care if you're nothing. It's just the mere fact that you're American, period. And if we can understand that, if we can get back to this common cause of unity and freedom for all, then America can fulfill the experiment. Because a lot of people always want to say American experiment. Well, I grew up in America. This is the only country I know. And at the end of the day, I couldn't really foresee picking up my whole, circus and moving to another country, because honestly, there's no other country that really appeals to me. I'm not trying to learn a brand new language, a brand new culture and all that. I'd rather fix what we have. And, if we can build space shuttles, if we can build intercontinental ballistic missiles, and if we can, produce vaccines that actually work and don't harm people, then certainly we can fix the social problems in our country. And I think it begins, one, with giving young men specifically a sense of achievement, meaning, join the service, sign up, see what the recruiter's offering you. Now, once again, once you go to your map station and you raise your hand and you take that oath, all that's subject to change. I'm not going to lie to you. But typically, guys, they do keep their word. But it can change, all right? But if you look at the benefits, this young man, young woman out there, young people, I'm talking to you. Ask yourself, would going to the military be destructive for me personally, or would it be constructive to me personally? And because you're going to have a long life to provide for yourself. Things like welfare, things like Social Security might not be there for you, but that military pension will be if you retire. You'll get all the skills, now granted, some occupations in the military may not transfer to civilian life, but many do. All right. One thing I do wish, and maybe you can pass this along, Chief. I wish that the military would actually provide CDL license for all service members that are actually driving CDL vehicles. Because I know right now they can drive the CDL vehicles as long as they're in the military capacity without the CDL license. The only reason why I want to give the soldiers and sailors that CDL license, that's one thing that would directly transfer over into the civilian world, and they don't have to pay these ridiculous amount of money to get a CDL license to put food on their table. So I think a lot of issue is we need to be concerned with not just the young people who don't serve, but also the young people who serve when they come home from their deployment, or when they just finish their tour of duty and get out, that we have jobs there for them. And then there should be other programs to help other portions of the society ensure that these jobs are going to be there for them as well. Because unfortunately, the mechanization of our nation is going to, there ain't going to be no more working with your backs, boys and girls. There's not going to be no more just maybe flipping a burger or something of that here in a second, because those are all going to be taken by robots for the most part. So a lot of things are changing. But as Kurt Russell says in the movie, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because at the end of the day, you're still going to need water, you're still going to need food, you're still going to need shelter, and you're still going to need people to love. So, that's just where we're at. Now, real quick, Chief, could you shed some light just a little bit on Rear Admiral McRaven and the situation with that?
Admiral McRaven, not Rear Admiral.
Oh, I thought it was a Rear Admiral. Okay. Oh.
That's about as high as you could go.
Oh.
It was Admiral McRaven. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a very talented guy. He's very intelligent. And you don't rise to a position like that without having your shit in one sock. He's very respected, and he's gifted. He's a what a national treasure.
No, you actually served.
What's going on with him and Trump? What's that?
Now, you actually served under him?
Yeah.
Not,
I don't know him.
so you
But,
never actually
when
met
you're
him?
admiral, you're controlling all of SOCOM.
Oh,
That's all Special Operations Command. So absolutely, yeah.
oh, I didn't know.
But,
Oh, so do you know like what
well,
year
that
he?
was. I think that was the thing that when Bin Laden was killed. I saw that on TV when Obama got up there and said it, and I went, "Oh my God!" My first thought was drone because I'd done a lot of that. I'd worked with those things. They hit him with a drone strike, and then when we found out there were troops that did it, I said, "There's no way it was SEALs. It could only be one or two organizations, Delta Force or Dead Group." And there was a little bit of controversy when McRaven gave it to the Navy. Like it was favoritism or something. Go get Bin Laden, but McRaven got the best guys for the op, and it all went off without a hitch. The rest is history. But he was the SOCOM commander, and that's the guy in charge of all special forces in the military, and he did a great job. He just did a great job. He's done a great job at everything. So I think where you're going is what happened with him and Trump. And I can't really comment to say on that, except guys get very angry and they say what's on their mind sometimes. I don't have anything bad to say about Trump or McRaven. Those guys had a little bit of a tiff, but I think when you go really public with that tiff is what was the surprising thing about it. I don't think anybody really enjoyed any of that.
No. No infighting. Because I mean, I know it almost sounds like being a propagandist, but the image of America, we have to really work on it because we look so ununified because in many ways we are. And that is such the wrong message to be sending to the rest of the world. I mean, yes, should we get behind something we ideologically don't believe? I'm not asking no one to betray themselves on such a level. But I'm just asking people to be intelligent about the things that they say and do. At the end of the day, these are our duly elected leaders. Period. Period. I'm not, you don't have to go and drink beers with them. You don't have to, have barbecues and all that with them. You don't. You really don't. But you really don't have to unnecessarily criticize them. Not saying that some of the shit he, grabbing bitches pussy. Okay, yeah, criticize him on that. Shithole countries, absolutely sure, whatever. But with the criticism, you also should throw in a little good shit too. Even though I know about the economy, I'm not going to deny the economy's doing well because some of the regulations on manufacturing and the industries have been, taken away. Because some of the tax incentives that are really going to benefit the CEOs, but it does trickle down a little bit to the workers, is helping out. And I'm not going to take that away from you. All right. And not only that, let's face it, guys and gals, we haven't had a terrorist attack. Well, we really hasn't had one since 9/11 for real. Thank God. But, we are still relatively safe, or we're just as safe as we were after that major attack. Okay. And he is, I am a proponent of the wall. I know that's so unpopular. I know it's so unpopular, but I am. I say it's just a common sense. It's just fucking common sense. It has, a lot of you guys know my political ideology and all that. But at the end of the day, dude, we have nations for a fucking reason. We really do. And, I'm not that far gone to be like, no, let's just have open borders and, just let whoever the fuck come in and do whatever the fuck they want because, dude, I have children. I have a huge family. I would be highly upset if some mass murdering asshole was allowed to come in, they raped one of my cousins or killed one of my sisters, and then they just roll out without being punished. Are you out of your fucking mind? Or not only that, they come in and kill one of my brothers. No, that's unacceptable. I have no problem with people traveling for business. I have no problem with people traveling to see their kid. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with a guy just sneak across the border fucking middle of the night and let's be honest, with a fucking bunch of drugs or maybe a child or two, and they're gonna snatch up people's kids and take them back with them. I have a problem with that shit. And you know what? If you don't understand that, then you're part of the problem, not me. because that's the reality. We have sex slavery going on, guys and gals. It's real. We have drug trafficking, the illegal kind that's killing people because you don't know what they're putting in that shit and you're buying it out there on the street. That's killing people. Now, we have a huge military asset. And all I'm saying is that we should utilize this military asset on the border. All of the borders, not just the southern border, but the northern border as well and our coastlines. Now, that should not be a partisan issue. That should be a common sense issue that we all could get behind. But somehow it all gets circle jerked to, oh no, you're just a hater because you don't want, X, Y, and Z to come in, blah, blah, blah. And that's not what I'm saying at all. Once again, I'm pro business. I'm pro people seeing their loved ones. I'm pro tourism, which is business. Anti dumb fucks coming in illegal, killing our people, raping our people, beating our people up, or giving them dope to put in their veins and kill them. I'm against that shit. And honestly, you should be as well. All right. So that being said, Chief, as a military man, do you think it's within the military's mandate to really and truly protect our borders?
Well, we got organizations for that. You beef up the border patrol. We could use the National Guard. The borders are a unique training aid as well. I know we were working with who the hell that was, setting up observation posts along the border for the drug trade. That was honing our skills of concealment. Building these hides and recon work and documenting and radio. I mean, it all tied in. It was all really good training for us. And, it's kind of strange stuff. I don't know that the full-on military, the problem with the military today is it's so taxed. The guys are tired, man. Really, really tired. The families are tired of all these deployments. And hopefully things are starting to wind down a little bit. But, no, I'm not so sure the full-on military can't really get an aircraft carrier up the Rio Grande River.
Well, you can surely park one in the Gulf of Mexico.
Some of the National Guard and contractors, you get some contractors. There's already a bunch of groups that, make it their own job to patrol the borders and try to stop some of the problems that are going. There's just no easy solution to it, man. We just got a lot of threats and gonna have eyes in the back of your head.
Right, and then we still have the homegrown
stuff in this country. This country isn't going to get done. I'm here in Maryland, and these migrant workers that go through here, you're not going to get a whole lot of Americans, sadly, to pick watermelons, pick the peaches, pick the crops, these jobs. I don't know where it changed. I grew up on that farm. I used to do all that stuff, and it just. They have to hire migrants to get the cantaloupes up here and things like that, and they just move, with the harvest, down to the oranges, up to just all over. So we can't get along without them. But I don't know, man. It's a bigger thing for the government. I tell you, the amount of pressure on this guy, it's undermining everything. I tell you, it just is. I'm not rooting for, rah-rah Donald Trump. And I'll tell you what, some people need to get off his ass because they soil everything. When they make life tough on him, decisions don't get made anywhere else, and there's just shit going on that affects everything. Everything because you are badgering that guy. And they never did. I can't think of a president, that I lived through that they did that to. I mean, Clinton went through his times, the Lewinsky's and Obama, and Reagan with the Iran-Contra thing. I mean, they did, but I don't remember any of that constant badgering and how hard they're working to get rid of that guy. It is ridiculous.
And the sad thing about it, the guy that will replace him, as far as the ideology is concerned, people don't realize the guy that's going to replace him is like 10 times amped up than the guy that's there now. People do not understand what Pence is really about.
There's just some hard feelings over that whole election, for better or worse, but everybody should, what's done is done sometimes, and you just gotta just let it go a little bit and see what happens.
Right.
But they never gave that guy a minute's peace. And it pisses me off, taxpayer, that they're doing. I wish everybody just shut the hell up. They can't even confirm that guy that he wants for, the
Supreme Court.
Justice in the Supreme Court. Over some shit that happened over 30 years ago? Are you kidding me? Where do you draw the line on that? And it seems like some people are taking that so serious. Oh my God.
Well, because a lot of people
30 years ago, and he didn't rape her or anything, but he, whatever he did, I just can't believe that some of this stuff comes up decades later. I'd make it. I'd get my name on a ballot and be disqualified 5 minutes later.
And the funny thing you say, and it's not funny, but it's like the people that have this information, obviously they had it for the past 30 years, like you said. So it wasn't important during the 90s, during the 2000s. But the reason why, the fix is in once again is because sort of like with the Pope right now, right, with the homosexual allegations. The reason why that's coming up is because the Pope pissed off the Knights of Malta. And this is that kind of the background war. They're trying to discredit the man and get him, basically to rescind his power, and then they'll get their guy in as well. The thing we all have to remember, and once you start looking at life like this, everything becomes so crystal clear. Is it destructive or is it constructive? Now, when it comes to President Trump, a lot of people, he's a very polarizing figure. If you don't have traditional conservative ideologies as your base, you're not going to get what he's talking about. And if you're a total liberal, then he's going to enrage you because he's going to say some things that are very uncomfortable. Whether or not they're backed by facts or statistics, it doesn't even matter. It's just the fact that they're uncomfortable. Now, a lot of people will say that that Trump is a like an evangelical Christian or whatnot. I'm not really for sure about what denomination he is, but the provocative move that he did with Israel by acknowledging Jerusalem as his capital did what? It solidified him in the minds of most American Christian as that guy that respects the nation state of Israel so much. He's going to, recognize Jerusalem. Now that actually opens up the whole thing, because we just heard about them having the red heifer. All right. So, this is kind of like a little religious, this is a paraphrasing thing, but some of the prophecies spoken of in the Bible are now coming to true. And, and hopefully when I have L.A. Marzulli on next month, we can really go into that aspect of it, because it's not just one thing that I like to deal with on this show. It's the whole thing as a whole, because you can always just take pieces and come up with whatever. But if you look at the whole thing, you'll start seeing a trend. You start seeing a trend that really started back in 1913 when this nation came underneath the Federal Reserve System. So, I'm almost at my hour, but I just want to say thank you, Chief, for coming back on the show and talking with us. I know we didn't get to one Navy SEAL story. We got sidetracked. But these are very current and contemporary topics. And plus, I want people to go to your YouTube channel to check out your videos at Buds131. That was actually the name of your Buds class that the Chief went through. And that's on YouTube. Check out the Phony SEALs, all the videos. He skips trace these guys, like this one gentleman down in, I believe Louisiana. He was a biker guy, and a chief and his wife approached him with the crew, and he was at a bar. He's like, "Check me out. You check me out." He gave up some Harley place, right? And lo and behold, they did go back and check him out, and he was flabbergasted. He's like, I don't want to do this. He totally looked like a totally different guy at work, I'm not knocking him. He looked like he's a damn good mechanic, a hardworking man, He's putting food on his table, but that's no excuse, though. That's no excuse to steal valor from people. You know what I mean? Sometimes, even though you're doing the right thing, you're still clowning. You shouldn't. That'd be like me running around here saying I'm a billionaire. I'm a billionaire, and you find out that's a lie. You can't put yourself out there so disingenuously.
There you go. Well, thanks.
All right, Chief.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
All right, bro.
All right.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
And I'll stay in touch with you. Senior Chief Don Shipley, everybody. And this has been Special Report. Thank you all. And I hope you check me out in an hour. We will be having Professor or Dr. Jason Nichols from Maryland University. Oh, man, we're going to have 2 people from Maryland today, which is really odd. But have him on the other morning show. Dimebag will be here. CI will be here. The whiskey is already here. Yes, I'm starting to drink in containers where you don't see me drinking. That's hard. But anyhow, guys, I'll be seeing you in a few hours. Peace.